Here we have a simple woodland shot where I'm going to take you through how it was taken and then show you how I would process it. So this shot was taken with a 70 to 200 lens at just under 200mm and a f11. So the camera was mounted on a tripod because the shutter speed was only a quarter of a second because light levels were quite low. And a polarizing filter was used to help increase the saturation of all of the yellow and orange foliage and also to remove the glare from all of the foliage in the shot. The point of focus was this tree here on the right, and if I just bring up the crop tool you'll see that it is on the right hand third. And the reason for that was that I wanted the background to just drift slowly out of focus, so that this most prominent tree here was the one that was as sharp as possible. But because of the trees around where I was shooting, I couldn't get the perfect position to crop out this tree, so I just took the shot anyway, knowing that I'd just be able to easily crop it out in Lightroom. So I'm just going to do that now. So just taking that down removes that distraction and results in a much cleaner image that I can now begin to work on. So the first thing that I'm going to do is just go down to the point curve, and I'm going to use the preset for medium contrast because I don't want to add too much contrast, and that just works much better than using the contrast slider. But adding that has darkened off the image quite a bit, so I'm just going to take the exposure up to about 0.61. So everything's really bright at the moment, but we're going to bring everything back to where it should be. So at this stage, I can see that the white balance is a bit off. So before I move on to anything else, that is going to be the next thing that I work on. So even though the temperature's only at 5050, it's still a very, very warm scene. So I'm just going to neutralize it slightly by bringing the temperature down until these trees here look correct. And I think that amount there of 4851 is looking good. I can see that there's a hint of magenta in these trees as well, so I'm just going to bring the tint slider down to +5, and I think that is completely neutralized now. I don't want to cool it off too much because if I was to use the auto white balance, you can see there that it just completely ruins the whole scene. So I'm just using Control and Z, that would be Command and Z to go back a step and just go back to my custom white balance. So at this stage, I can begin work on the tone sliders here. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the whites over to the right. I'm just holding down the Alt key, that would be Option on a Mac, so I can see if there's any clipping. So I'm going to take that up to my favorite default of +40. I can see there's a tiny bit of clipping there, but that's where the sky is penetrating the foliage. And that's something that I will deal with in a second. I'm just going to bring the highlights down just to dull off the bright parts of the image. I don't want to take it down too far. And now just work on the shadows. I'm taking it over to the right to lighten things off. I'm going to take that over to the right and let's go for about +55. And then with the blacks, I'm just going to take those over to the right and I'm going to go for +25. So we're getting quite a bright image here, but I'm going to deal with that and bring everything back into balance using masking. But before I do that, there are a few distractions that I'd like to work on. So we have this leaf here that I'm finding quite distracting between these two trees. And also the sky here, it's just catching the eye too much. So I'm going to zoom in there and I'm going to select the healing tools and I'm going to use the content aware remove. So using this, I can just left mouse click and paint over the area, and then hopefully it will fill it automatically and look completely seamless. And that is doing a fantastic job. So I'm just going to take out this last one here. And then if I just hover over there, we can see the result and everything looks seamless. So I'm just going to zoom out and then zoom back in here and do the same to this leaf. And that has been taken out really nicely as well. So once I zoom out, you can see that we've lost that bright distracting area in the left hand corner, and that lone leaf has gone as well. So it's just making the composition and the image as a whole better. Okay, so now I'm going to add a small amount of clarity, so that's increasing the mid-tone contrast, which enhances detail. But also, what I would like to do is use the texture slider. So if you take the texture slider over to the right, as you see there, it's really boosting the texture. But instead of doing that, I'm going to add a kind of autumn effect by taking it down to -35. And if I just zoom into the tree here, you'll see as I bring that down, we're not really losing any of the sharpness of the image, but we're just getting that kind of nice soft look that you would typically get with the autumn effect. But it's a really, really subtle way of doing it. And then next up, I'm going to go to the masking tools and I'm going to add a linear gradient, and I'm just going to pull that down over this back part of the image. It is going to catch some of these trees as well, but that's not a problem. And I'm just going to bring the highlights down. You'll see as I bring them down, they're just darkening off the foliage in the background slightly. So it's balancing a bit better with the foreground. And then next, I'm going to go for a radial gradient. And I'm going to make this really nice and big because I want it to cover this central area. And then I'm just going to click on invert because I would like the effects to apply to the outer area, whereas this inner area is left as it is. And I'm just going to bring the exposure down. So let's go for something like 0.85. So it's creating a very subtle vignette, but without messing around with this area in the center. And I'm just going to tweak the shadows and I bring those up to about 20. And that is just stopping any of the darker areas on the outside from becoming pure black. So now that's done, I can close those tools down. And to finish off, I'm going to increase the saturation in the image. So I'm going to do this in a slightly different way. Of course, you could use the saturation slider here, but it's a really quite blunt instrument and the result isn't very nice. So I'm going to use the calibration tools instead, and starting with the blue primary, you'll see that the increase in saturation is much more subtle and it doesn't affect the image in the same way as the saturation slider. So I'm taking the blue primary up to +30. Now I'm going to look at the green primary. So you'll see that's affecting more of just the foliage. I'm going to take that up to +10. And then the red primary, I'm going to take that up to +10 as well. So it's just creating a much more refined saturation increase, and there's much more control doing it this way, as I say, than using the saturation slider. So that is the image finished. That is how I got this shot.